The World in Review. The whole story. World in Review. News without the humanistic bias. World in Review. Analyzing and reporting. World in Review. Education and information. World in Review. From a biblical perspective. The World in Review. With your host, Wally Wood. The World in Review.
Hello everyone, I'm Wally Wood. We welcome you to this edition of the Revelation File. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to cover a lot of ground on what's happening with COVID and especially the unvaccinated. As you saw in our opening slide, that there is a growing tide against the unvaccinated, and we're calling this on the way to the mark. Now, for those of you who may be new to this program, we look at world news from a biblical worldview perspective. And looking at what Billy Graham said once, he said, the Bible tells us that the state of the world will grow darker as we near the end of the age. In Revelation 13, verse 17, we read, no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark. And we're looking today on track to the mark. Unvaccinated, beware. The growing global intolerance with the uncooperative when it comes to the COVID vaccine. New York Times, time to get tough with the unvaccinated. CNN, angry at the unvaccinated, here's a better way. New York Times, July 2021, what if the unvaccinated cannot be persuaded? DW.com out of Denmark. COVID-19, France makes life difficult for the unvaccinated. MSN News, unvaccinated NFL players will have a much tougher time than the vaccinated in 2021. Independent in the UK, Italy to introduce vaccine passports for indoor activities as infections spike. Germans, according to the AP News, Germans divided over restrictions for the unvaccinated. Reuters, France opens doors to vaccinated travelers, restricts others. The Telegraph, vaccine passports to remain a permanent fixture for foreign trips. Forbes, EU countries tighten restrictions on UK visitors. So what's happening here? What does this all mean? Where's this taking us? We're told in Scripture, as we looked a while ago, in Revelation 13, that you will not be able to work or sell anything without a mark. To reach that point, society has to be coerced, it has to be trained, it has to be molded in moving in that direction. And those who will refuse to take the mark will be the most hated in society. And that's where this is all taking us. I want you to pay attention to this. At the very outset, we give our disclaimer that this news program and this news service are joint productions of Wally Wood Ministries, a Houston-based tax-exempt nonprofit educational and informational ministry. In these reports, we share information, articles, videos, and other materials that might be copyrighted. We give adequate recognition to all sources of the materials we use. Our purpose is not to defame or malign anyone or any source. And we're simply bringing forth information, education in a transformal type of way. Free will offerings are welcomed into this ministry. Military.com reports that soldiers who refuse vaccination can still serve, but their careers are over. BBC News, coronavirus, no jab, no job policies may be legal for new staff. It may be legal for companies to insist on new staff being vaccinated as a condition of their employment, the Justice Secretary has said. Some firms say they will not hire new staff who refuse to take the jab. ABC News. More businesses are mandating COVID-19 vaccines. Is that legal? Some states have banned localities from issuing orders. We're also providing the addresses that you can go to on all these news headlines. Vaccine passports are spreading across the world. Here's how they could work in the U.S. Israel is launching COVID immunity passports. Unvaccinated NFL players will have a much tougher time than the vaccinated in 2021, and they report that their salaries are going to be tapped, those who do not receive the vaccination. MSN Sports. Unvaccinated NFL players to be fined for COVID-19 violations. Unvaccinated NFL players could be fined $14,650 if they violate COVID-19 protocols. The report initially came from a Tampa Bay Times article, which stated that Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach Bruce Arians would fine unvaccinated players $14,000 every time they were found not wearing a mask or breaking COVID-19 protocol. Out of Berlin, the Austrian government has ordered a nationwide lockdown for unvaccinated people to combat rising coronavirus infections and deaths. The move prohibits unvaccinated people 12 and older from leaving their homes except for basic activities. I want you to pick up the trend on this. Christian News Network. Employers target unvaccinated workers by deducting up to $50 a month from their paycheck. This comes from Forbes magazine. Employers are beginning to tack on a special surcharge of $20 to $50 a month to their unvaccinated workers, according to one of the nation's largest health benefits consultancies. Market Watch. If your employer fires you because you won't get the COVID vaccine, don't expect to collect unemployment. Wow. From People magazine, Alabama Republican governor says it's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks for COVID case spike. We're to blame. Those who are not vaccinated are to blame for the spread of COVID. Newest variant warnings against the unvaccinated from CNN Health. Vaccination is not enough by itself to stop the spread of variants, the study finds. The Insider reports unvaccinated people don't only risk their own health, their bodies become variant factories. The South African. COVID-19. Unvaccinated people are variant factories, according to experts. Now, a variant factory is simply a body that is producing the virus. So they're pointing to the unvaccinated as being producers of COVID. By virtue of the fact that they're not being vaccinated, they become the super spreaders, according to these society reports, these media reports. I'm reminded again, Revelation 13, verse 17, no one will be able to buy or sell. That means you will not be able to shop or work except the one who has the mark, except the one who has the vaccine. It's trickling down now where we're able to track the Christians in this current set of time concerning COVID. Watch this. Wall Street Journal. White evangelicals resist COVID-19 vaccine most among religious groups. Evangelical Christians are more resistant to getting the vaccine than other major religious groups, according to newly released data. CN News. Many evangelicals say they won't be vaccinated. Evangelical Christians are the group that is the most likely to say that they are not going to take the vaccine. Among them, 28% of white adults who identify as evangelical Christians said they definitely will not get a vaccine. 6% said they will only get vaccinated if they have to, and 15% said they will wait and see. Watch the tracking on this. Religion News Service. In many COVID hotspots, a pattern. High concentrations of white evangelicals. Concern about vaccine hesitancy or outright anti-vaccine sentiment among white evangelicals has persisted since at least March. But according to a poll from Pew Research Center, those who said they were Christian and born again were far more likely than any other religious group to say they definitely or probably would not get a vaccine. AP News. Vaccine skepticism runs deep among white evangelicals in the U.S. DW News. American evangelicals and the resistance to COVID vaccines. Evangelical leaders in the U.S. have helped sow distrust in public health professionals and COVID-19 vaccines. But some church leaders within the ranks are confronting the resistance amid the coronavirus pandemic. NBC News. Christian nationalism's COVID vaccine doubt threatens America's herd immunity. Christian nationalist ideology will almost certainly serve as a barrier for a sizable minority of Americans who need the vaccine. They speak in terms of our being subject to misinformation and bad information on this matter. The Guardian, Nick Cohen. It's only a matter of time before we turn on the unvaccinated. Poverty and religion are creating a class the newly inoculated will come to resent. This is in the news, folks. Unvaccinated people need to bear the burden. Now, before I go on, again, let me bring this to your attention. Talk about end-time persecution. Those with a strong Christian identity in the last days will be blamed like the Christians were blamed for burning down of Rome. You don't need the facts to spread the data and to get people to believe what you're saying. It doesn't have to be true. Just start spreading the word. It catches on, especially in this highly connected world of ours. Unvaccinated people need to bear the burden. Watch this. Senator Rand Paul, nothing more authoritarian than no-fly list for unvaccinated people. This is reported on Fox News. Breaking society apart, unvaccinated people are angry as they face more COVID restrictions. Those COVID restrictions are aimed at the unvaccinated. It's time to turn up pressure on unvaccinated. Newsweek. Fact check. Does a site where people report the unvaccinated really exist? The answer is yes. Los Angeles Times. Should the unvaccinated pay more for health care? That's an easy call. People who don't vaccinate are imposing costs on the community that they're not paying for. It's okay to blame the unvaccinated. They're robbing the rest of us of our freedoms. I hope you see the pattern. What we're seeing here is unfolding Bible prophecy. If this can work against the unvaccinated, it's going to work against the Christian community at large as society becomes more sophisticated in their community. A family divided, growing global intolerance with the uncooperative. Luke 12, verses 52 through 53 and verse 56. From now on, Jesus said, 5 in one household will be divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They will be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. You hypocrites, you know how to interpret the appearance of the earth and sky. Why don't you know how to interpret the present time? Micah 7:6. For a son dishonors his father, a daughter rises against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the members of his own household. Such are the times, and this pandemic is bringing it to the surface, making it happen. Matthew 24, verse 6, do not let your heart be troubled when you see these things. Jesus said in Matthew 24:34, the generation that sees these things shall not pass away until all these things come to pass. Digital health passports, a Trojan horse for a cashless society. This is a report that appeared in Prophecy Newswatch. Several new technologies that appear separate and unrelated will soon converge, creating a giant digital trap that will easily reduce people everywhere to little more than a human QR code. Trackable, traceable, and 100% dependent on big tech and big government for their existence. And COVID is being used to speed up the process of this convergence. Wow. In our report number 91, in which we spoke in terms of the coronavirus creating a cashless consciousness, it aired on July 5th, 2020. You can go to our YouTube channel and find it. I would encourage you to do so because there we built the case concerning the connection between COVID and cashlessness. I work in retail, and it never ceases to amaze me how many people are so fearful of your handing cash over to them without gloves. They're wearing gloves, and they demand that checkers wear gloves just to handle the cash. That kind of fear is enhancing the use of the technology of cashless purchases at the terminal and online. And cash dispensation and distribution, circulation, is diminishing statistically as a result of COVID. So the entire world has got this fear of the spread of the germ of the virus in cash transactions. So I invite you to go back and look at our program number 91 on the YouTube channel, in which we talked about how this was opening the door for the advent of a diginomic world, a cashless society. Luke 21:36, watch therefore and pray always, that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. This was at the end of Jesus' prophetic discourse in the book of Luke, Luke chapter 21. And this whole program that we've been doing for the past 2 years has centered around that one verse there, along with a few other key verses for the preparation of the saints for the end times that are now upon us. It's not coming, it's now upon us. 2 Chronicles 16:9, another encouragement for believers. For the eyes of the Lord roam throughout the earth so that he may strongly support those whose heart is completely his. This is a clarion call to believers in times like this, to turn your heart fully and committedly to the Lord himself, so that he may show himself strong in matters like this. Malachi 3, verses 17 through 18. They will be mine, says the Lord of armies. On the day that I prepare my own possession, I will have compassion for them, just as a man has compassion for his own son who serves him. So you will again distinguish between the righteous and the wicked, between one who serves God and one who does not serve him. Now, this may sound like a bunch of religious talk, Bible talk from a Christian, but I'm here to tell you, the times are going to get so hard, and if we haven't been raptured out, the decision to put food on the table or to be in resistance to anything that the government commands you to do is going to become extremely, extremely difficult and strained. And I'm bringing these verses to our attention so that we may focus more completely on the Lord's promises to those whose hearts are completely his. Revelation 3:10, because you have kept my command to persevere, I also will keep you from the hour of trial which shall come upon the entire world to test those who dwell upon the earth. I am not a harbinger of bad news, as people might want to accuse me of being and have done. This is not bad news. These were the things that Jesus put forth and told us to be alert to and aware of before his return, as signs that his coming was to take place in that one generation. So, if there's anything to be gained from this, this should be encouraging to us. We are living as the last generation that will see with our eye the splitting of that eastern sky. We are the generation, because we're seeing the very things that were to occur only one time in the history of man, and it's happening in the lifetime of this one generation. And as I said before, this is a clarion call. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to live your life like normal and go with the flow? Or are you going to spend some quality time that you've never spent before with your Lord privately, getting to know him, getting to know his word, learning how to use his word as a tool and as a weapon, not against flesh and blood, but against the powers and principalities that are the princes of the air. On track to the mark. Unvaccinated beware. Growing global intolerance with the uncooperative. That's the world we're living in now. We will never go back to normal, what normal used to be. We are on a set. We're in a tide. It's taking us directly into the era of the Antichrist, who is soon to appear. And all these things that we're witnessing here in the headlines are part of that movement, that trend, that model. We're on a course. And fortunately, it's a course that was prophesied as far back as Daniel chapter 2 and the chapters in the book of Daniel, that there was coming a final world leader who would become the most despotic dictator history has ever known. I wish I had more time to take you into deeper detail on these matters. These are the trends that are happening at this moment. They're not going to go backwards. They're going forward. And you've heard me say this before. The more you know, the less you fear. But come to grips with the power of the Word of God and the blood of Christ in your life today, now. Therein lies the wisdom that we're all going to need in moving forward to make secondary split decisions at a quick notice. I'm serious about this, yes. That's why I'm coming across with you seriously. But these are the times that we're told that those who know their God will rise up and do great exploits. So I encourage you, keep coming back to our programs. We're not into scare tactics. We're into news, information, education for transformation. I appreciate your viewing with us. I thank you for being in our audience. Spread the word on this program. I'm Wally Wood. Thank you for watching.
You have been watching the Revelation File Report with Wally Wood, a Wally Wood Ministries production from Houston, Texas. You are able to support the ministry by donating at wallywoodministries.com and by mail at Wally Wood Ministries, P.O. Box 42005, Houston, Texas 77242. Wally is available to present full 2-hour forums in your city called the Revelation File News Forum. For more details, contact Andy Valadez at 713-560-3348 or by email at andy@andyvaladez.com. The Revelation File News Report is a weekly update of global trends in the news as it aligns with end-time Bible prophecy. Tune in again next time and be sure to like and share this channel.